You know what a really common request in the horror community is? Give me a really scary movie to watch. And there is always someone who says, none. No movie has ever scared me. And there will always be someone who says old horror movies are best and new ones aren't scary. I disagree with the idea of both these statements. Movies only scare you if you are open to the idea and on some level want to be scared. And older movies were scarier because you were in a much more vulnerable state when you watched them. One of the movies that I loved and scared me from my childhood was definitely Ernest Scared Stupid. Ernest may have been a campy SpongeBob-like character with a dozen films based around him just being himself in different scenarios, but the most professionally done and best one was definitely Ernest Scared Stupid. This movie gave me one of my first serious nightmares as a kid that I still remember to this day. And today, we are going to decide if Ernest Scared Stupid is a good movie, or is it all just nostalgia? Holy crap, this intro is amazing! That score is like a 10 out of 10. The intro of this movie is a perfect framing for your experience of the movie, riddled with practical effects that put some horror movies to this day to shame. And this movie came out in '91. It also has very goofy and childlike earnest moments to distract you from the horror scenes that, if you think about them for more than a second, you'll realize how utterly terrifying it is. The story focuses on Ernest P. Worrell, a city garbage man, his young friends, Old Lady Hackmore, who is the designated crazy lady of the town, and Trantor, a monstrously evil troll.
You gotta pay the troll toll. If you want to get into that boy's hole, you gotta pay the troll toll to get in.
No, not that kind of troll. Who has been trapped under a tree for the last 200 years. One day, Ernest accidentally releases Trantor, who then goes on a rampage of terrorizing the town, kidnapping children and turning them into dolls for a sacrificial ritual that will bring his race back into the world. I'm sorry. What is this movie rated? PG? Man, the 90s were definitely a different time for kids. Let's look a little deeper into our main villain, Trantor, the troll. Look at this guy! I always forget how ugly and unique he is. I first saw this movie when I was probably 6, and I had my first nightmare about this guy that I remember vividly. Trantor has the power to mimic people's voices to lure children into traps so he can take them, which is part of the scariest part of this movie.
He's not it. Over here, Kenny.
He is also strong enough to pull a car that is being driven away from him, plow through a wood fence like it's the tearaway paper at a first football game of the season, tough enough to get hit by a car and brush it off. I mean, like a few seconds earlier, he does get knocked out by Ernest accidentally opening a door on his face, which can be chopped up to just slapstick physical comedy. But he also has this super breath that he used to shatter a car windshield, and he even knocks Ernest off his feet with it. But the scariest and most intimidating part of Trantor is that he is relentless. He doesn't care. Trantor kidnaps kids in front of their friends at social gatherings. There's even a moment where he's stalking 2 of the main kids in the middle of the day. And to top it off, he leaves them alone when they are about to enter someone's house and he sees a kid skateboarding nearby, and he just improvises and snatches that kid. He even breaks into a house and takes a kid just moments after her mother leaves the room. With how successful he is at his goal, how does your stomach not turn? Now let's look at our hero, Ernest P. Worrell. Despite having an incredibly childish and innocent view of the world and how he acts, which again kind of reminds me of SpongeBob in a way, he does have a determination and a bravery that does give our villain a run for his money. Ironically, some of the most gut-wrenching moments didn't come from the villain, but from Ernest himself. We are introduced to Ernest's stupidity by this scene.
I think it was a clever idea. So, Elizabeth.
What? Who hired you? Shouldn't you be calling someone? As a kid, you might brush it off as funny, but as an adult, all you have to do is imagine your skin being torn off by the street for a second before screaming internally, shouldn't someone be doing something about this? Keep in mind, this is within the first 5 minutes of this movie. But wait, there's more. In the next scene, Ernest accidentally falls into the trash compactor of his truck. In rim shot, his sidekick dog pulls a lever and closes it and starts the machine. Worst sidekick ever. As the metal walls close in on Ernest and his inevitable fate is at hand, he uses a muffler with a pipe attached to it to jam both of the sides of the wall to keep it from closing in on him. Smart. But when that doesn't work, he notices the gears and tracks and tries to find something to jam it. Smart. But then he does this.
No, don't stick my head in those gears. But it's me or you. And I have a family at the doll factory. I'll send him a nice card. You'll never get away with this, Ernest. I know where you live.
Dude, you're about to die. Why are you giving this doll a sob story? I'm pretty sure Chucky kills a guy in one of his movies with a trash compactor, so this is almost poetic justice. The other characters are the kids who bring a classic kids group having way more fun than anyone's real childhood, like in the Goonies, Sandlot, or the Monster Squad. And then there is the crazy woman of the town that knows the most but doesn't really help out that much. There's also a bunch of side characters like the parents of the kids, the bullies, and the salesman duo who could be taken out of the movie and it really wouldn't change anything. They make their appearance in other Ernest movies, but whenever I see them, I think to myself they were the original inspiration for the Penn and Teller duo.
Does a fat puppy hate fast cars?
Well, let's tear the movie into pieces and see if they have any merit on their own. Does this movie have a good score? Absolutely. The intro speaks for itself. Does it have a good villain? Trantor's practical effects, his powers, his goals, his achievements, his motivation put some modern monsters to shame. Does it have a good story? Ernest's relationship with the other kids is heartwarming and fun. His battles with the villain put him on a pedestal that you can't help but be impressed with. It ends in an epic climax that has moments of terror, action, and even warm-heartedness, and also a lot of comedy. Is it funny?
Think of a number between 1 and 10. Was it 2?
Is it scary? Now, despite all of the praise and the compliments I can say about this movie, it pains me to say that this movie is very nostalgic. The main reason for the judgment that I lay at the feet of this movie is Ernest himself. This is by far my favorite Ernest movie, but him as the main character takes you back to a much more simpler, slapstick, and dumb humor time, where if you didn't grow up with it, you more than likely wouldn't appreciate it today. Jim Varney, you were truly a treasure of your time, and when I was reading your biography, it really hurts to know that you really tried to be a serious actor, but you just kind of fell into the Ernest roles and you just couldn't get out of them. I hope it gives you comfort knowing that your movies are considered to be an adult's childhood treasure, and when your audience thinks of you, they smile and laugh. You were taken from us too soon, my friend. So that's my judgment of Ernest Scared Stupid. It's a great film, but it's very nostalgic. If you have seen it, I definitely recommend giving it a rewatch, and if you can appreciate old movies, give it a chance. And since I brought it up a few times, I want to actually share my nightmare. I hope you enjoy. A loud thunder woke me. I could feel my eyelids open, but it was as dark as if I'd never opened them at all. I frantically looked for my nightlight to give me some peace of mind. I reached down the wall side of my bed, desperately feeling for the tiny source of light that helped me fall asleep in peace. My hand trembled as I felt the soft plastic of the wall outlet. My fingers felt the 3 holes where my nightlight should have been. My eyes watered up as I whimpered to myself, "It's gone." I slowly rolled out of the left side of my bunk bed. I stood up and grasped the side panels of the top bunk, hoping the little noise would wake my brother, but he didn't move. I whispered, "Nick. Nick." But he didn't answer. I was too afraid to wake him. I didn't want him to be mad and beat me up. But the darkness all around me brought me to a panic. I looked outside the window, and to my terror, there were no lights outside to help me. I carefully walked over to the bedroom door. The warmth of my blanket left me as I dropped it. A chill crawled up my back, and as quick as I could, I rubbed my upper arms as violently as I could to bring me a little bit of warmth. Just a few more steps, I told myself. I gently stretched out my arm, anxious that my hand would slam against the wall and hurt me. But I was able to touch the wall gently. I glided my fingers along the rough surface until I felt the familiar, smooth surface surrounding the light switch. I gently pinched the switch as if touching it too hard would sound an alarm. I turned back towards the bunk bed. All I needed was just a second. Just 1 second where I could see everything in the room. Just to reassure me that there was nothing to be afraid of. I knew if I was fast enough I could turn the lights on and off, and it would not wake my brother. My heart began to race. I would finally be able to go back to sleep. My arm tensed, and as fast as I could, I flipped the switch up and down. My body froze in terror. The lights never came on. I jerked my head around and flipped the switch again and again. Nothing. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up. My mind was creating monsters all around me. Monsters that knew nothing could save me from them. I desperately gripped the door handle near the light switch. The hallway light peeking through the door frame was my last hope. With both hands firm on the handle, I twisted it, but it only gave half an inch. Locked? There isn't a lock on this door! I planted my feet and gave the door a quick yank. The door budged and slammed back shut. I replanted my feet and pulled on the door until it gave way. I rushed forward and felt the sudden thunder of the door slamming behind me. The overhead light gave me peace and sight. My fear emptied from my body. I glared down the empty hallway with a sense of relief. I could finally see everything. A smile crept across my face, and then I saw him. Trantor, standing at the other side of the hallway, a disheartening 20 feet from me. The light made me see him for what he was, a monster, twice as big as me, and looking right at me. The stocky troll barreled towards me. I reached for the handle behind me, but the troll's arms wrapped tightly around my chest and arms like a python that just caught its next meal. My hand was ripped from the door handle, my lungs collapsing. I tried to scream. Help! Help! Bright blue light swirled around my body. My arms slowly turned from flesh into a brittle wood. The troll's magic worked itself through me. The stiff cold of losing feeling from my arms crept into my chest and crawled up my neck. My eyes jolted open. I was still in bed. I looked over to my right and saw the night light on. I coiled my body around the tiny bulb and pulled the covers over my head. I'm gonna try to stay awake as long as I can. Thank you all for watching and listening. If you liked the little scary story from my childhood, leave a comment, and I'll see about telling more scary stories. And please remember to subscribe. About 80% of my views are from people who haven't subscribed. And please, stay spooky.